Slavery in ancient Egypt. You hear the words and maybe you think of pyramids, temples, and endless sand. But that is only half the story. Behind the grandeur, behind the golden tombs, were women whose lives were consumed by cruelty, fear, and punishment. Female slaves were not just workers. They were property. Their bodies and minds controlled. And when they failed to obey, the punishments were horrific. I keep thinking about it, and I cannot shake the image of a woman standing in the courtyard, exposed, her hands raw from labor, knowing any misstep could end in pain, humiliation, maybe worse. These women worked everywhere: households, temples, workshops, cooking, cleaning, grinding grain, weaving. Some served in the harems of wealthy men. You might think labor was the worst, but actually it was just the beginning. The punishments they endured were layered, deliberate, and frankly terrifying. And we know enough from fragments of papyri, Greek observers, and temple reliefs to piece together how systematic the cruelty really was. Flogging was common. Yes, beatings, but these were not mild spankings. Women could be whipped for small mistakes or even imagined ones. A crooked loaf of bread, a dropped basket, a glance that displeased the mistress. Any excuse really. And it was not just private. Sometimes it was public, meant to humiliate, to warn the others. I keep picturing it. A woman's back raw, scarred, and others forced to watch, understanding that the same could happen to them. Living every day in fear of that pain. It is hard to even think about. Then there was branding and marking. Archaeological evidence shows that some female slaves were tattooed or even burned with marks of ownership. A permanent symbol that they were property. Imagine carrying that stigma every day, exposed in public. It was not just pain. It was psychological. Every glance from a master, every passing stranger, a reminder you belong to someone else. I do not know how anyone could endure that and still hold on to a sense of self. Sexual exploitation was another weapon, though it is rarely detailed in surviving texts, understandably given cultural taboos. But Greek accounts, like those from Herodotus, suggest it was pervasive. Female slaves could be coerced by their owners and refusal was not tolerated. Punishments for resistance. Flogging, confinement, or worse. It was horrifying. And there was no escape. Walls, ceilings, doors, even silence became part of the prison. Their entire lives were controlled. Their bodies subject to ownership and abuse. Labor itself became punishment too. While men hauled stone or farmed, women faced exhausting domestic work. Imagine grinding grain for hours on end, fetching water in the blazing sun, cooking for dozens, and cleaning constantly. And if you did not keep up, whipping, humiliation, solitary confinement, reliefs from the New Kingdom show women bent over grinding stones, overseers watching, sticks in hand, ever ready to punish. I can almost feel the ache in their muscles, the burn in their arms, and the exhaustion that never ends. It is not work. It is punishment disguised as work. Public humiliation was another layer. Hair could be shaved and garments stripped or replaced with degrading clothing. Women could be displayed for their perceived failures. Their shame made public. And that humiliation sticks, does it not? Even if the beating heals, the memory of standing exposed, laughed at, pointed at lives in the mind forever. Its invisible scars layered over the visible ones. Sometimes the punishments escalated to mutilation, though less often there are mentions, sporadic but chilling, of cutting ears, noses, or other body parts. Permanent reminders of disobedience. Imagine living with that forever. Every glance in a mirror, every touch, a reminder that your body was not yours. And the goal was terror, not correction. It was to make other slaves watch and understand that resistance came with consequences worse than death. The law, or at least the social structure, reinforced all of this. Slaves had no legal protections. Complaints went ignored. Female slaves, because they were women and property, were most vulnerable. Their punishments were public, intentional, designed to instill fear, enforce hierarchy, and remind everyone that they had no rights. The system itself was the punishment. Fear ensured compliance. Compliance reinforced authority. Authority justified cruelty. It was horrifyingly efficient. And yet within this terror, some moments of quiet resistance existed. Some women held on to small rituals, prayed secretly, and memorized poems or prayers. Others formed bonds with fellow slaves, small acts of solidarity that for a moment reminded them they were still human. You almost cannot see it in the records, but it is there in fragments. It is in the gestures between women, the secret smiles, and the tiny ways to preserve dignity. Even when everything is taken from you, the human spirit can persist in ways history rarely records. It is impossible not to reflect on the brutality. How could a civilization capable of such architectural and artistic beauty also implement such cruel, systematic oppression? How could ordinary people carry out these punishments day after day? And more importantly, could you survive it? Could anyone endure constant labor, beatings, humiliation, sexual abuse, mutilation, and psychological terror? It is almost unimaginable. And yet, women endured quietly, fiercely, and sometimes cleverly. Their survival, even under these horrific conditions, is remarkable. Reading about it today, it makes you question modern assumptions, does it not? That cruelty is always obvious, always spectacular number. It can be subtle, bureaucratic, ordinary, and normalized. The punishments of female slaves in ancient Egypt were designed to be ordinary, and that is what makes them terrifying. You do not need extraordinary acts to control people, just constant reminders of power and your own lack of agency. So when you look at the pyramids or the temples, it is worth remembering what supported that grandeur, wealth, power, artistry, but also suffering. Women whose pain was invisible to the historians of their time, whose labor and bodies made civilization possible, yet whose voices are largely lost. That loss itself is a kind of punishment, is it not? Being erased from history while still being fundamental to it. If you have read this far, maybe you feel some of that weight. Maybe you are thinking, I cannot imagine living like that. And that is the point. Remembering these women is not just about shock. It is about recognizing human cruelty, resilience, and the moral responsibility to not forget, to honor their lives. We have to carry their stories forward, share them, reflect on them, and let them remind us that oppression can take many forms, often hidden in plain sight. History can be uncomfortable, even painful. But understanding it, even the darkest parts matters. The punishments of female slaves in ancient Egypt were not anomalies. They were systemic, embedded, and normalized. And yet, even amid the horror, moments of resistance, resilience, and quiet defiance flickered. That tension between cruelty and survival is what makes their stories unforgettable. What makes remembering them essential.